it's affordability. People are maxing into their credit card. They're maxing out their credit cards. They're dipping into their savings. They're applying for loans, and they're actually pulling from their 401ks.
I feel like a good informed citizen should be like, you know what, I am like Democratic or I am Republican or whatever you are, but I still want to see a little bit of a pushback from the other side.
But that's the problem, Eric. A lot of people don't like competition because if there's a winner, there has to be a loser. So people don't like competition because that's what competition is.
Yeah. Underrated, we the underdogs, underestimated.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Totem Podcast. Today we are honored to have the guest we have today. Round 2, second time he is on today. He gave us another little snippet of his time. But, of course, we got Eric here with us.
How's it going? I just want to give a quick shout out to Brian Baltazar for the shirt. Appreciate it. I'm so repping the shirt on the podcast, so this one goes out to you, Brian. Appreciate it, Ryan.
He's been another guest. Make sure you check out his episode also. But go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, guys. Just remember, guys, we're on Spotify too, because you're probably listening to this on YouTube, as you should be. So just remember to click subscribe. That's the most important thing. Just click subscribe, so you can be notified every time we get new guests on. But then you also got to hit the notifications button, the little bell they got there, so that way you can literally get a notification every time we got a new episode coming up. But yeah, guys, if you guys like the conversations we're having and want us to keep bringing on more guests like the one we got today, click subscribe, share it, and hit the bell to be notified.
Yeah, that's the only few we have for the guest. I mean, for the podcast, that's the only few we got. But so today's guest, we got Ryan Gonzalez with us. He's running for Colorado House District 50. So Ryan, how you doing today, man?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me, you guys. It feels good to be back. I know it's been a while since we last spoke, and I'm really excited to look forward to what kind of interactions we'll have today.
Yeah, for sure. If people remember, the last time you were here, we're in a little different race.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about what changed from then to now?
Yeah. So I was actually running for our new congressional district, but after talking to some people, we thought it would be best to transition to a state house race. So instead of CD8, I'm actually running for House District 50. So House District 50 is its own legislature seat in the state capitol. It is pretty much the only legislative seat that fully sits in Weld County. So it's pretty much East Greeley, Garden City, and most of Evans. About 90,000 people per district, and very compact. So it's a very important race, very competitive race. And we're actually very excited. I can tell you I haven't seen this excitement in a lot of races in a while. I'm not just saying it because it's my race, but because a lot of people are putting in their time, they're investing money and their effort for this cause. We have a slogan called Majorities Matter. So that's kind of what we're running on here in our state legislature capital race. And we're very excited, and so far everything has been very well.
So tell me a little bit about you're a younger guy running candidate compared to the typical politician. So kind of give me a little bit of insight on some of that, how it's been. How has your experience been so far as you've been going along?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I can tell you it's been very busy. Record number of hours and time and commitment cuts into your personal life. And, we just feel that now is a good time to run as a different kind of candidate, different message and different strategy. We believe right now the status quo, the typical politician, like you just mentioned, Monico, typically older, typically retired, or just have a lot of background in political experience, whether they were formally elected in another level or they were an executive, and et cetera. But the fact of the matter is it's been very, very time consuming. But I'm doing it for a very good, genuine cause. A lot of door knocking as well, phone calls, and just going to events, right? Getting my name out there and just wanting to meet people and spread my message. And so far, the response has been mostly well received.
Has this kind of race been what you thought it was going to be? Because, we're you're deeper into this one as we're about 30-some odd days out. Has it been what you thought it was going to be, or has it just been more effort that it takes you to put in?
Well, it's exactly what I imagined it would be. Just at the state level, less territory to cover, less money to raise, and less ground troops that are needed as far as knocking on doors, which we call canvassing. But I can tell you, the stuff that goes along with running, it makes you open to attacks from whatever opposite party that you're in. And it exposes you up to obviously misinformation and all kinds of stuff. And I can tell you that that's just the kind of stuff that makes people like us not want to run for office. I mean, the negative publicity, the media, things like that, cuts into our personal life. But so far, everything has been, according to plan. I'm very blessed to have the people I do. I have about more than a dozen volunteers that help me in this campaign, right? And they believe in the message and the strategy. And, we're just hitting it hard these last 30 days.
Yeah, they usually say if you want to be a politician, you probably shouldn't. I guess you probably shouldn't vote for them. Usually the good politicians are the ones that are just like, yeah, I don't want to do this. But kind of going a little bit different topic, different route. What do you think is the biggest problem right now the district you're running in is facing?
Yeah, well, I can tell you from working at a bank and dealing with regular people like us, it's affordability. People are maxing into their credit card. They're maxing out their credit cards. They're dipping into their savings. They're applying for loans, and they're actually pulling from their 401ks. I see it on a daily with people coming in to deposit checks taken out of their 401s because they can't afford their living situation anymore. We have high inflation, about 15.6% here in Colorado, the highest rate in the entire nation. And it certainly doesn't help when we have policies that make it more unaffordable for everyone, especially people who are renting, right? Tenants and apartment complexes, that kind of stuff. It just pushes the cost down to the renter, right? And wages, everything is going up except wages. And so that is a problem. And I hear about it a lot. People are concerned about not being able to afford their apartment that they're in or their home that they're in. Property taxes are going up. Their rent is going up. And a lot of them, too, are senior citizens, who live on fixed income. So Social Security and other types of retirement benefits that they have. And they're just not making enough to compensate for this inflation. Their rent's going up $100, but their income is still the same. So affordability is definitely the number one issue in Colorado voters' minds.
So the argument I guess people can kind of make against that is that it's not just in your district. It's been in all Colorado and nationwide, honestly, too. So, I mean, I guess it's kind of been everywhere. Do you think it's kind of like a cause maybe of repercussion of COVID and stuff like that? Or just the market in general? Or what do you think is mainly driving that?
I think a lot of it has to be tied to at the federal level, they printed money that didn't even exist. And that is what causes inflation, right? So we saw it in the 1970s, record high inflation back then. Interest rates were going up because they were printing money that out of thin air, basically, is what happened. And we're seeing a repeat of that with the stimulus checks from 2 years ago, right? When everyone got the $1,200 per individual, and then we got the $600 and then the $1,400. So $3,200 in total per person, not including children. And that has also pushed the cost of everything to go up. And here in Colorado, a lot of our policies that we've had have driven inflation even higher. So, you look at California, $8, $6 a gallon. Here, not so much, but still everything is going up.
$5 is still a lot.
$5 is still quite a bit if you think about it.
Yeah. And in Colorado, though, you go to a grocery store on day one, and then you go to the store on day two, and you see them that they increase the prices by about 30 cents. And so you see that trickling going up for a lot of consumers. And a lot of it can be tied to this democratic one-party rule. They control the Capitol, they control our governorship, and they control the courts. So they control all three branches of government here in Colorado. I mean, a lot of their policies have driven inflation just a lot higher than it should be here in Colorado.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they're controlling the three branches like here in Colorado, I don't think that's very smart, I guess, for the state, for just one party to be controlling the three. I feel like it should be just kind of split up or something else that's not like so heavy one sided, because then pretty much everything they want is going to get passed, and then nothing that obviously it's like because they get elected in. But I just don't think that's kind of
Depends who you ask. If you ask the Democratic Party, they're gonna be like, "Hey, we're golden, we're good."
well. I mean,
Right?
they should. I feel like a good informed citizen should be like, you know what, I am like Democratic or I am Republican or whatever you are, but I still want to see a little bit of pushback from the other side. I don't think that politics should be just like I'm on this team, so whatever they say goes. Like, yes, you can be a part of that team, but like still make an informed decision. Still have some of that pushback.
Like a little bit more balanced. You're saying?
Yeah,
Is that
something
what you're
more
saying?
balanced, more like kind
Okay.
of checks and balances to keep everybody in check.
What do you think, Ryan?
No, that's a very good analysis. I can tell you a lot of people with what's going on right now, not only here in Colorado, but across the country, people don't like that everything is controlled by one party because of just the amount of change that we've seen in these last 2 years, right? So in the 2020 election, right, Joe Biden was elected. The House remained in Democratic control. The Senate remained in Democratic control. But our Supreme Court remained in conservative for the most part. So it's not totally one-party rule at the federal level, but here in Colorado, at the state level at least, our Supreme Court tilts to the left. Our state legislature tilts to the left, and so does our governorship, right? But a lot of people believe in split government. They really do. So you see, and Colorado's very unique. So, you look at places like Tennessee, right? Solid red. You look at places like California, solid blue, right? They have a super majority, so they control everything. In Tennessee, the Republicans control everything. Whereas in Colorado, we go back and forth. So sometimes we have like Democratic control completely, and then sometimes we have just some split with Republican control. So the example I would point out to you is back in before 2018. So the midterm of 2018. Before then, we controlled the Senate, and we also controlled the House, but it flipped. And now with redistricting, it makes us potentially flip the state Senate, very likely. The House, there's always a possibility to flip the House, but it makes it more unlikely to do so. And then the governorship, which is competitive, same thing with these other executives, so Secretary of State, Attorney General, Treasurer, all of those races right now are competitive. So Colorado swings back and forth in those positions as to which party controls what.
So inform me a little bit. I'm not that smart. How many districts is there in Colorado? Like you're running for District 50.
So there are 65 state house seats.
Okay.
And there are 35 state senate seats. So a total of 100 members are part of our state legislature. That varies by each state. So not every state has 100. I think the total in the entire country is about 5,700 legislators total in each state, right? So you know of Congress, and think of the legislature as a state Congress that obviously helps pass laws at the state level to get legislation going forward.
So you said the number one issue in Colorado was affordability. So how do we start attacking that to kind of help combat that and bring it back down?
A lot of it has to be tied to excess government regulation. So we have too many laws. I believe that we should look at all the laws, get rid of all the bad ones, fix the broken ones, and pass sound laws. I believe that a lot of excess fees and taxes have also hurt us because they're growing our state government. So you've seen under this current Polis administration an increase in our state government, so agencies and programs. So how do we fund for those? Those are funded through taxpayer dollars and fees. So because of our Taxpayer Bill of Rights, so our TABOR, which is very, very, very important, and that we could talk specifically on a podcast just about TABOR. I'm very fascinated with TABOR. I love TABOR. I'm a supporter of TABOR. But what TABOR does, basically, in essence, is it asks for voter approval of any tax increase or new taxes that we have to, as voters, have to approve of. Okay. So what the state legislature did was as a way to go around that, they started changing these taxes into fees. So what happened then was when it was challenged in the state Supreme Court, right? The court ruled that fees were not a tax, and therefore the fees could go through in order to fund these programs and agencies, which is how they have been able to grow the size of government.
So is that good or bad, you think?
Too much government, too much intervention, I think just is the problem. You look at the two most regulated industries, education and healthcare, and you look at what they have in common, and you see that those are the two most industries that government is involved in. So I feel like too much government just impedes innovation, it increases regulation, and it just stifles our economic growth overall.
So you touched on education. The last couple of weeks, months, and stuff since when the school started up again, with the kids, there's been like a lot about going like 4 days, 5 days, and all this stuff, and then parents can say yes, parents have a say, parents don't. If you get elected, what's something that you're gonna do kind of in the education space? Because that's huge. That is the future for the country, for our communities, for everything. The take a lot of like older people can get that they don't have kids in schools. Don't worry, like I don't got kids, I don't care. The problem is that that's your community. If you care about your community, you should care about the kids because they are the future. What's something that you'll do to kind of help the education system?
Well, one of the things I want to do is reintroduce what they introduced this last session is a parental bill of rights. So what that included was curriculum transparency and school choice, to name a few. And the Senate Democrats voted that down here in the state capitol. So that just shows you that they're not really for parents. They're not for curriculum transparency. They're not for school choice. My opponent touts education, her being an educator for 40 some years. I can tell you a lot of the policies that she stands for go against school choice, go against being competitive. So I believe competition is one of the things that we should encourage. So what I mean by that is...
In schools?
Yes.
Okay.
Charter schools, alternative schools, vocational schools, trade schools, right? We should focus on skills, right? Not just Pythagorean theorem and, other stuff like that. We need to teach people skills, right? And the example I always point to is I know of, and we know, right, people who didn't get a high school diploma or didn't get a college degree, and they're making six figures every year. So they can be plumbing, electricians, welders, stuff like that. It doesn't require a degree. It doesn't require a diploma. And so we need to turn our attention to those skills to encourage innovation, be more competitive, right? So you look at other countries, and we want to make sure that we have the talent and capacity to compete with that. And so how do we do that? We open the doors for people to go out and pick their schools. A child, right, as being a future taxpayer, should be able to be given the opportunity to go to an alternative form of education, because I think it's only right. And I feel like we also need to reform our Common Core, so we should go back to the basics and teach people financial literacy. People don't know what credit is. People don't know what financing versus leasing is. Annual percentage rate versus annual percentage yield. They don't know the basics on life, right? Mortgage stuff, taxes, all of that. And I feel like we should teach our children here.
Why do you think they don't teach them that stuff in school?
A lot of it can be tied to just the failed public education system. The fact of the matter is we focus too much time on ideologies and other stuff that we shouldn't be teaching our children. I feel like that's the job of a parent to do at home. And we should turn less to the basics of finances, right? For them to be successful in life, because we're trying to push a certain way to think, not how to think. I should say we don't teach them how to think, we teach them what to think, and that's a problem.
Indoctrination.
Indoctrination is one of the things. And look, I'm not attacking all public school teachers, because I went to public school, but there are some, of course, like everywhere there's bad apples that like to force their beliefs on other children.
And that's interesting because what you said about having a school of choice, what it sounds like to me, or not what it sounds like to me, but what you said, like it can have more competition. So having more competition for schools, shouldn't that just raise the teachers' skills as teachers, and make better schools overall for everybody?
But that's the problem, Eric. A lot of people don't like competition because if there's a winner, there has to be a loser. So people don't like competition because that's what competition is. But a little bit, I kind of wanted to like give you another take, I guess, for people like you said, it's the parent's job to educate the kid, and then somebody. I mean, I'm gonna give you a quick story, but somebody can be like, Ryan, well, you're not a parent. Like, what do you know about raising kid? You know, I'm giving you devil's advocate.
Because he's a parent.
Because I'm a parent, I know how it's fun. You saw him upstairs, and it's so it's like I know somebody that works in the industry for like with the education industry, and she was telling me about like you know how like the parents don't do anything for their kids, like what you're saying, and these kids they had a problem with some kids that they'd run away from schools. They would just run and he'd go home and disappear, and they're not big. These guys are like 4th graders, 5th graders. They're like little kids. For me, that's little kid. You think you're big, you're little. You 5th grader, you're little. You're not big, you're little. But that's what it goes back to the parents. And then they say to the teachers, well, what are you teaching them in school? You should be doing this and this. Like, hey, that's your job. Your job is to teach them like the values and stuff like that, you know. And that's where it all gets lost, you know. I'm just giving you the take, like you're saying. It should be, but then you're like, well, you're not a parent. How do you know? But you have nieces, nephews, am I correct? Something like that. So you kind of see the background of it, right?
Yes. And it's because I've practically raised those kids too, that I want to make sure that they have a good education. And I want to make sure that my sister and her husband have the ultimate right over their child's education. It shouldn't be the school board. It shouldn't be the superintendent. It shouldn't be a teacher, right? It should be the parent. And I want to stand with parents and obviously give parents a voice in their child's education, because the fact of the matter is just because they're not involved as much doesn't mean that they don't care. I'm pretty sure they care. And I guarantee you, if they actually knew what went on in the classroom, if they knew what they were teaching, parents would be more involved. But the fact of the matter is right now, you know, with what's going on, people are starting to pay attention. People are starting to get involved. You know, so we're trying to turn the tide in our favor, in our direction, for the betterment of our kids, right? Because that's what we want. We want to make sure they have good education, safe schools, and competitiveness. You know, we should focus on skills, like I said, not just curriculum. You know, I'm not saying it's not important to teach everybody to read, write, and arithmetic, but it is also important to teach people the basics in life. Financial education and credit and stuff like that, and stuff that, you know, maybe parents don't have the resources to teach them, but as an education institution they can. And so giving them more choice in that is something that I would consider.
Yeah, I mean, competitions is only going to make everybody better. If people, I feel like if people are against that, it's because they're afraid of their skills and they're afraid that they can't improve themselves and that they're going to just fall through the wayside and just be overtaken.
So I seen a video the other day. They're talking about, he's like, so as a coach, you know, he's coaching. I forgot what he's coaching. I think it was baseball. And they're like, the coach is telling the little kids are like, well, my daddy said it's good as long as I try my hardest, you know, and stuff like that. And then he's like, and then the coach is kind of giving them like a little speech. You know, they're like probably 4th or 5th graders. He's like, hey, if your dad is telling you that, just know your dad was a loser. He wasn't a winner. If that's what he's telling you, just have fun. It doesn't matter if you win, because if your dad was a winner, he's gonna be like, baby, you want to play baseball? Let's make you the best baseball player you can try to be, you know. Yeah. So that's competition. But I just thought it was funny. I was thinking about that video.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Just people who are afraid of competition just don't believe in themselves, really.
Well, and the importance of competition, I can't stress enough. So not only in education, but in our economy. So healthcare, right? Competition will drive prices down. When it comes to technology, right? Innovation. You know, other service, innovation, right? The more competitive you are, if you want to get your share in the market, you want to have appealing and attractive pricing, right? You know, not only just cost of goods, COGS, right? Cost of goods sold, but also you want to have a decent profit margin while also having an attractive one compared to other people who overinflate their prices. Like, for example, Beats, right? So Beats, they charge what, like $240 or so for like just these regular kind of like look these, and their cost to make is probably like what, like $15 if anything, around there, that range. So they have a high profit margin. Same thing with insulin, right? So if we make our medicine here in the US instead of depending on places like China for our medicine and our medical drugs, we can drive prices down, right? We want to be attractive to the market. How do we do that? We have a very good product at a very good price and very accessible, right? So you look at your 5 Ps, right? Product, place, price, promotion, and packaging. So to name a few, right? How they're more effective when it comes to that, to be competitive. And competition is important. You know, like in the market, you want to be competitive. And that's what I want to push for, is work with the private sector.
And that goes like right into the another issue that you're like pretty strong on is economy. Because right now we're in a recession and stuff, so we don't know how severe it's gonna get. We talked about this on the last episode. But we don't know how severe it's gonna get, or if it's gonna get worse, if it's gonna get better. So, what's something you would do to kind of help bring the economy up in Colorado, or I mean in your district?
A lot of it has to do with working with our small businesses. So House District 50 is the capital for small businesses in Greeley. So downtown 8th Avenue. Now, me and you guys have seen it, right? So many businesses. A lot of times they're not brought to the table when it comes to legislation or a policy that impacts them. And I feel like we have to bring our stakeholders to the table, listen to them, and work something out. I can tell you, I admit that I don't know everything and I don't act like I know everything, but I want to work with people who do know those field-specific experts on passing meaningful legislation that will help us get towards, driving down costs, right? Supply and chain disruptions and inflation and unemployment, right? People can't get the help they need. So I want to make it a priority to help small businesses specifically recover from the pandemic, because a lot of these people are still recovering. And it's going to take years to recover, and they can't find help still. The staffing. So
if you guys do need help, Inceptions Media, they're focused on marketing, so that they'll help you, hit your goals that you have for the year, the new year coming in. Sorry, I had to
help you expand your business.
Sponsored by. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off. I just had to throw it in there. It's perfect.
Well, no, and a lot of times, like you just mentioned, it's effective because a lot of these small businesses don't know what resources and other opportunities there are for them. And there's also a disconnect because some people just don't trust other businesses or, media stuff, right? Like they just don't know much about it to kind of start infiltrating and getting into the market share, being more effective, right? But I can tell you it helps with collaboration and just, making sure that we help them get the people they need. And then that helps stimulate economic growth, at the micro level, these small businesses, because I'm not for the corporate people. I'm certainly not for Wall Street. My donations, my fundraising will prove that. I'm working for people like us, small businesses, whether you have 2 employees or 50 employees, it doesn't matter. I believe all small businesses are essential, and we need to give them a voice.
Do you tackle that like on a one-on-one kind of thing with each business, or is it kind of like town hall meeting, you guys come over here and then we kind of like talk about the resources? Because I know like some chamber of commerce, like they'll have like meetings and stuff like that, but then they don't actually go out and personally reach out to each like business. So the business owners are just like, you know what, it's kind of like whatever.
Yeah, so I know for a fact that a lot of times people don't give them consideration, when it comes to that kind of meaningful impact, just because they're too small. But again, it all comes down to listening. And, I like to do one-on-ones because each industry is different. So you have your tech, you have your restaurant, you have your agriculture, you have your energy. So there's different industries and they all work differently. So I'm not for a uniform cookie cutter approach. It's all about meaningful policy that impacts them in a positive way, but also getting their input on it because it affects them, right? I feel like a lot of people in our government right now think that they know what's best and they feel like they know everything. And I'm here to tell you that I don't know everything, and I acknowledge that. But I can promise you I want to work with people who are in those industries that are going to be impacted by these policies and laws, bring them to the table. I don't want to be the one that writes all of these bills and, just thinks that I know it all. I want these people to, give me some good stuff. And if they have bills that they want me to introduce, I'm more than happy to look at them. But I do, I look at it individually per business and per industry.
What's one thing that you think that the small businesses are failing to do? Because we know COVID hit them and stuff. But what's like the biggest thing that's like, why aren't they growing? Why are they still shrinking? Why are they not getting more business?
A lot of it has to do with demand. So, you look at supply and demand. They have maybe excess demand, but they don't have enough supply because, number one, they don't have the materials, so supply chain disruptions, or they don't have the labor to do it, right? So we pay a lot of people to still stay at home. People are conditioned to stay at home. They don't want to go look for work. A lot of these small businesses have to close maybe 2 or 3 days out of the week just to not overwork their employees they currently have because they can't get people through the door to help them. And so we have to encourage people to go back to work. We have to mitigate this supply chain crisis. So how do we do that? We stop depending on other countries. I feel like Colorado has an opportunity to expand its economic development and not just energy. Aerospace. So that's something we can also talk about here in a minute, but also making our products here in Colorado, whether it's plastic or medical prescription drugs, any sort of that nature, even metals, right? So production of cars, anything like that brings jobs, but also helps us depend less on other countries and more dependent here in Colorado where we can make most of our stuff and just make it more affordable.
Talk to me about aerospace. You said aerospace. What are you thinking there?
So Colorado's number one in aerospace. So I actually got a chance to tour Lockheed Martin and see what they do and see that they are very well equipped. They have their headquarters here based in Colorado. They have other places like in Alabama and other states, but they're mostly focused here in Colorado because we've had the foundation for it since they first began. A lot of successful space projects. And they are in growing need of fulfilling more demand in the coming years that I feel Colorado can be definitely, they can take the lead for sure. And so what I want to do is in House District 50, I want to bring maybe an aerospace program to UNC and also maybe have a Lockheed Martin institution or facility there in Greeley or in the area to help not only get jobs but maintain Colorado's lead in aerospace and also help continue to drive innovation, right? So we have Colorado Springs as our military facility and then the Space Force as well, and so I think it just makes it perfect to have aerospace and for us in Colorado to be number one in aerospace.
Okay, so I guess I have to pretty much ask the question. You're a young Hispanic guy, that's running for House District 50. It's not a common thing for Hispanics, to be running. And in your district, there's 48%, about 48. Don't quote me too much, but it's pretty close to 48% of the population is Hispanics. So what do you think that you will do to gain their support?
Because a lot of people might think, just because he's Hispanic, he automatically got some.
Well, I can tell you I relate to different groups and not just Hispanic groups. Number one, I am a proud child of Mexican immigrants. I love our Hispanic culture. We're very family oriented. We're very faith oriented and faith based, and we also believe in prosperity and just the good and betterment of our people. We are all a familia, essentially. The Hispanic community, we're all a familia because we understand our values and our morals and our traditions and our culture. And so for me, not only do I resonate a message con la comunidad hispana, with the Hispanic community, but with also young voters and with independent voters and with those people who are just unsure of the process, who have just become so distrusted in our political system and just our system in general. Making a message and talking to these people one-on-one, right? And just getting to understand them and their concerns. And the response I've gotten is very, very, very well. You'll get a few encounters, whether they're negative or just, not interested, and that's totally fine. That's normal. It's part of the process. But in general, most of the response that I have received has been very well. And those in the Hispanic community have been very receptive to the message. And they're very happy that they meet somebody that's running that's young and that speaks Spanish because a lot of politicians, I'm pretty sure, don't really speak Spanish. And if they do, like Governor Polis, they know maybe like a few phrases, very well rehearsed, but they don't know our language and, how to have a good conversation with us in the Hispanic community. And, I feel like we've been taken advantage of by both parties, for granted. And I feel like we need people to bring us back, to unite us, and to show us what we really stand for, regardless of party, and just fight for our values, our morals, and our traditions.
Is there something like that you see now, like with because right now it's Mary Young who has a seat. Has there been policies that have been actually good that she's implemented?
So she touts that she is an advocate for the Hispanic community, when I have seen little effect on her policies that she's introduced specifically. Now, I will say, as far as my opponent's policies, I will say that one of the highlights for her was probably education for special needs, making sure that they are well equipped, discrimination issues as well. But I think that's just about it. I mean, our economy and, our crime, everything else has she's been supportive of by voting for them. And it's just made Colorado what it is now. But, credit goes where it's due. And I can just say that when it comes to education for special needs, that's the only thing that she's really done that's effective.
Mental health. I mean, that's a big topic that we always go off. People are just like, yes, it is good, not good. What's your take on mental health?
Well, my opponent's also a champion for mental health. When we have obviously seen an increase in homelessness, we've seen an increase in drug addiction, we've seen an increase in crime, we've seen an increase in suicide. And I've seen that her policies have not really been effective in that area specifically. I can tell you my opponent has also tried to link mental health to our law enforcement. What it's done, it's pretty much kicked that responsibility of a medical provider to the law enforcement officer, to where anyone that has a mental health problem is considered a criminal, and anyone that's a criminal is considered has a mental health problem. And I feel like we have to separate that, because it's not the job of law enforcement person to, identify and, evaluate these people. It's not. It's to get the situation under control. And they're not equipped with the expertise that other professionals like psychiatrists or psychologists are. And so there's a failure in that part, right? We're not giving people the treatment they need. I am not saying that everybody that has a problem needs to go to jail, because I think that is wrong. I do believe that we need to give them the treatment that they need to help combat this homelessness and drug addiction and all the depression. We're seeing an increase in this stuff here across the country, but here in Colorado, it's going up. And my opponent has been ineffective in that manner. But I believe that mental health is something we have to work on, and that's something that we also need to work on the private sector to help get solutions for.
You kind of touched on it a little bit about like how it also affects homelessness, and I know like homelessness is like an increasing just issue like all over the state.
Yeah, ridiculously.
Yeah. So what's like your take on like I don't know if like combating is the right word, but like helping out like homelessness and improving it?
Yeah, so some of these people don't want to be helped. That's just the fact of the matter. They don't want to be helped, and to each their own. There are some people who struggle with drug addiction. There are some people who struggle with PTSD or other disorders. And I feel like those are the people we need to help get into treatment, right? So we get people into treatment who need it. And that helps mitigate the homelessness issues to some degree. But also working with other charities, right? So there's Catholic charities and private charities and nonprofits that help in these causes. And we need to also work with them to help give us ideas of how we can bring the homelessness rate down. Because all you do is if you do like a camping ban, you move the problem somewhere else. You're not taking care of the problem. You're just shifting it to somebody else. We have to stop that. We have to find out what are some practical solutions we can do that are realistic. But we also, as government, shouldn't be the ones to say that we know everything. Because again, the private sector, the charities, those people who are involved in these type of issues should get a say to help craft more legislation and laws that help bring homelessness down.
Let me give you the counter argument to that. Would you guys agree that like saying that, especially in homelessness, there's a lot of people that are in office or whatever, you know, that's their job to try to solve for homelessness. If they solve that job, they're jobless now. They're jobless, that person. So I mean, my personal take, I don't know, maybe wrong. Don't believe everything I say, but I'm saying they don't really want to fix the problem. They kind of just want to just like soften it up a little bit so they can just keep going on to the next one. So what are some solutions that you think that can actually solve the problem? Because a lot of them say, we're doing this on homelessness, and you're not doing much if it just keeps increasing. You're just kind of just trying to do the bare minimum to keep your job, because, I mean,
if you solve it, you're out of a job.
They're going to be the next homelessness. Then the homeless person is like, what are some things that can actually be implemented?
Yeah, well, I feel like, affordable housing is one of the things too. A lot of these people just can't afford the cost of living, to even rent. And I feel like helping address that situation will help, get these people some in the right track. But also, again, it comes down to treatment. A lot of these people do need treatment. And we need to get them the treatment that they need, or the help and support that they need to get them off the streets. Now, it's not going to work for everybody. It's not universal. Like I said, I'm not for a cookie cutter approach to everything. But to help mitigate that, I would say we need to get people the treatment they need. Just look at how many programs and agencies we have at the state level for homelessness and see that we're pumping thousands, if not millions of dollars on these programs that aren't even working. So if we redirect that money to these treatments that people need, it'll help curb that, at least to some degree. But also, working with our nonprofits and seeing what they're on the ground level, what they're seeing and what they understand. But also just talking to the individual, the homeless individual themselves, and seeing, what exactly is wrong, and, how we can help them get them off the streets, because it comes down to an individual issue. And so, it's not going to be uniformly throughout.
So we talked a little bit about like the good that your opponent has done, how the good stuff that Mary has done for the state. What's something that you think you can go in and you can improve on?
Yeah, so she is she's against oil and gas, and she does not believe in domestic oil production. She opposes that. Here in Weld County, we not only feed Colorado, but we feed and power the rest of the country and other parts in the world. So we're the 8th largest producer of ag. We're the #1 producer of oil and gas here in Colorado. Joe Biden was just here today, I believe, or if not yesterday, with our senator, touting, I think, out in Monument, obviously, our land, when he could be asking Weld County to produce oil for us and help get the prices of gas down. And so I believe in opening our oil and gas, giving out more leases and permits to drill to help bring the prices at the gas pump down, but also give us our energy independence again. That's one of the things that I feel I could do right away on day one, is get us back on our energy and making sure we're sufficient enough to power all of our state and our country and other parts in the world, where we're not asking OPEC or other places, like Venezuela potentially in the future, for oil, when we can just drill it here in Weld County. And so oil and energy is one of the biggest things I feel like on day one I could start getting to drive down prices.
Yeah, so last time, correct me if I'm mistaken, last time a Republican held a seat in where you're running was about 2002. So yep. I guess give me your final thoughts of what you will do to change that in the next couple weeks.
Because it has been 20 years. If you think about it, 20 years, it's been a really long time if you think about it. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
Well, the conditions are set. We're in a midterm year. Democrats control everything, and generally history is on our side. It's usually a referendum on the party who's in power. But specifically what's different this year is candidate quality. So what I mean by that is specifically, it doesn't necessarily matter completely what their affiliation is. It's obviously who the candidate is, what they have to offer, who they are, what they stand for, and their connection to people. And so for me, knocking on doors and going to events and talking to people across the district, the response is very well, they're receptive, it's personable. I'm not reading off of a script. I'm not, sticking to the same universal message to everyone. I accommodate my conversation to the person, and we have dialogue. It's civil. They understand and they're interested, and I'm a different kind of candidate. I'm not here to speak for other candidates. I'm here to speak on my behalf, what I have to do, what I want to do, what I stand for, who I am, and make that message, right? Stand out from the crowd, not be, a traditional politician who attacks their opponent and, uses personal attacks. And that's why people are sick and tired. They're tired of all of that. This is why people don't run. But I believe that we do have our conditions in our favor to flip this seat here and potentially, our state capital.
Yeah, I always have the notion kind of like, if you're so focused on talking bad about other person, like somebody else, business-wise, whatever you're in, it's because you're not doing that good. So the best you could do is talk bad about somebody else, their business, or whatever they perform. What are some of your final thoughts, Eric? What do you think?
No, I mean it was good. I just want to get your last take on because I did hear about some of the negative publicity that's going on against you. I know that's probably pretty hard for you to kind of like take in and absorb and kind of maybe ignore and just kind of focus on what you're doing. So I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
It's the dirty politics. It's the exact reason why good people like us don't want to run for office, because we have to deal with that kind of stuff. I can tell you with the negative advertisement, it's nothing but extreme exaggerations to outright lies. And I'm more than happy to address the situation for people who have questions about it and talk to them about it, whether it's one-on-one or whatever. But we're moving forward. I'm focused on my race and what I want to do and what I can accomplish. And that's just the route we go with.
That's awesome. So where can people find you if they want to support you?
Yeah. So I have a Facebook page, Ryan Gonzalez for Colorado. I have a website, ryanforco.com, ryanforco.com. I have a list of endorsements. I was endorsed recently by the Colorado Oil and Gas Association, Weld County Commissioners, the Mayor of Evans, National Federation of Independent Businesses, to name a few. But I would love to earn your guys' support. People who live in the district, obviously spread the word, and I would love to earn their support.
Yeah, you guys will have the ballots out here in the next, pretty close, pretty much now. But yeah, so. Yeah,
well, Ryan, thank you for taking time out of your day. I know it's getting closer to election, so appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to come out here and, sit with us and chat for a little bit.
Yeah. No, anytime, guys. Anytime. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Yeah, but like always, guys, our only fee on the podcast is to just share with one other person. If you found value in here, if you like what Ryan's saying, go out and share with one other person.
Some education, since the ballots are coming in, you guys all, I believe we're all undereducated, and we should educate ourselves a little bit more when they come to big topics like the one right now.
Yeah. So, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. And just remember that listening to the Totem Podcast is an act of rebellion.
Thank you.
Yeah. Underrated. We the underdogs, underestimated.